Okay. We're live on YouTube, so I'm going to admit all our people. So Councillor Mclennan, if you just, once they're all in, if you just want to let them know to stay on mute until their portion of the meeting begins. And just give them a second. Okay. Okay, Councillor, if you want to begin the meeting.
Hey, if we're all ready, I'll call this committee meeting of adjustment to order. And I would ask the visitors if they would stay muted until their turn comes up to speak. Anyway, we will proceed. And Carmen, if you could start.
Yep, if I could ask for any disclosure of interest first.
Do I see any disclosure of any interest? If not, then we'll go ahead and move to item 1.
Okay. And the first item is consent application D10-111, D10-112, D10-113, and D10-114. The recommendation is that the Committee of Adjustment of the Township of Whitewater Region approve 4 consent applications, D10-111, D10-112, D10-113, and D10-114 for the properties described as part of Lot 27, Concession 4, Garden Lake Trail, subject to the conditions outlined in this report. So, Chair, if you want to call for a mover and a seconder.
No, I'll move a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Mackay, second by Councillor Olmsted, and then we'll turn it over to Ivan.
Yeah, thanks so much.
I'm on the wrong screen.
I'll give me just 1 second. Maybe going again. Yeah, all right. Just a quick technical difficulty. We had Councillor Mackay in my office, and it doesn't seem to be some resonance. So he's going to take a quick step to another office, and then I'll go ahead and commence presenting, and he'll join us very shortly. So what we have before us is 4 applications for severance. All 4 applications are for lot additions. We do have Mr. Stubinsky, who is the current property owner of these 4 properties in the audience, who's joined us. And I think we also have Gordon Kemp, who's also one of the applicants. So there's 4 applications submitted by Jason Kemp, Carol Kemp, Gordon Kemp, and Sean Powell, and they're all submitted on behalf of Matthew Stubinsky. Each property, the lot addition, so the severed properties range in an area between, I would say, between about 1/3 of an acre to about an acre. And they would be added to existing lots that are waterfront lots on Garden Lake that again range between 1/3 of an acre to about 3/4 of an acre. So the resulting properties would be about, more or less, here's a map that depicts what's being proposed. Resulting lots would be larger, which is great for servicing, especially with private on-site water and wastewater services. And they'll probably be just shy of an acre, or more or less around 1 acre in size. The retained parcel, which will be held by Mr. Stubinsky, is quite large. It's a total of 52 acres, so he'll retain 52 acres of property as well. Some of the key components here is access. So you'll note here the survey plan in front of you. It depicts the 4 properties, 24, 26 Mallard Lane, 8 Lady Slipper, and 14 Lady Slipper. Those are the existing lots. And where it's noted the file number D10, 111 and such, those are the lot addition lands. These lot addition lands will all back onto Garden Lake Trail. Garden Lake Trail is a private road. Thanks, Carmen, for doing this. It's currently surveyed, and there is access provided through Garden Lake Trail to these properties and the properties in the area. If you look at D10-111, you'll notice is Mallard Lane. So that's Mallard Lane is currently surveyed again and provides access to several waterfront properties. and Lady Slipper Lane, which is also surveyed to the south, also provides legal access to certain properties. Staff are generally supportive of these applications. I will note, we did receive calls from the adjacent landowners who use these private roads to access their properties. We did guarantee them that any existing access that they had, while the landowner will change, those easements that they have registered on title will continue to exist. One property owner between 24 and 26 Mallard Lane, shown here, it's 26A Mallard Lane. They did request that deeded access be provided over Mallard Lane. So that blue parcel is going to be transferred from Mr. Stabinsky to Mr. Jason Kemp. And one of the additional conditions that's different than the other files is that the lawyer of the applicant, being Jason, confirm and provide deeded access over Mallard Lane. So it's not a difficult task because everything's already surveyed. It's just that it's more of a legality thing that will be dealt with through the lawyers. Apart from that, I'll read through the other conditions. These are very similar to conditions that the committee's seen before. One is that survey plans for these lot addition lands be submitted to the township and the county, both paper and hard digital copies. Secondly, that the zoning category be modified. So currently, because these existing lots front on a private road, they're in what's called a limited service residential zone, limited LSR for short. But all of the addition lands are rural zoned, RU zoned. So to ensure consistency, we would require one zoning amendment. They'll only have to file one application because it's all one property today. So only one fee. But what we would do in that application is change the zoning for these 4 parcels from RU to LSR zones. So that would be one application that would have to be authorized by the owner, Mr. Stabinsky, and submitted to the township. The other condition is that these properties merge. So what happens is once you create these new lots, they need to merge with the other properties so that they're not separate conveyable lots. So that's a condition that the lawyer ensure that he provide us an undertaking and that these properties merge on title. Very typical for lot additions. And then, so that's basically it. So surveying, zoning, one for deeded access, and then and the merging of the properties. So staff are supportive of these applications, and I'll be glad to answer any questions that that the council or committee and the public may have. Thanks so much.
Okay, I guess, would we ask for, are the gentlemen, is there somebody there to speak on behalf of this?
I think you may be muted, or maybe not.
If so, Ivan, you could bring them on. If not,
We're not. Oh, sorry. My apologies.
Matt, Mr. Stabinsky, do you have anything you want to add? Am I on mute? No. Okay, and who is the other one, Ivan? Mr. Simon?
I'm seeing Gordon iPad 3. I'm not sure if that's Mr. Kemp or not, Kemp, but if you're willing to speak now, now's an opportunity to comment if you have anything to say. I'm not seeing him unmute himself, so I'm thinking we could proceed, but Matt has unmuted himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good morning. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Do you have anything you want to add, sir?
Just want to add that I heard from the property owner, Tracy Miller from 26A. And they're kind of stating that they might want to purchase the area behind their property now. So they're supposed to be coming up here this weekend. So I will speak to them. I told them they'd need to do this in a timely fashion, obviously, because everything is where it's at, right?
Yes, so maybe Matt, so this is a conditional approval, so even, so if the committee approves this, it's not finalized, nothing's finalized. You as the owner and Jason as the applicant, you could withdraw your original application or amend it. And if the owners, Tracy, decide that they want to purchase behind their lands and everybody could agree to that, you would just file one extra application and we would amend Jason's application.
Okay, perfect. And yeah, I mean, I don't have a problem with it either way, per se, but I think, you know, the neighborly thing to do is that they would have that opportunity, right?
Yeah, if you guys work out those details, you can just reach out to us afterwards on the outcome of that conversation and we could work out the formalities to get new applications, or we'll figure out what we need to do. I think for the time being, we could approve it now as it's noted. That way, if they decide that they do not want to purchase, then we have it approved. We don't have to wait till September. But if they do want to purchase, then we can amend the application.
Perfect.
Okay. If that's all the input, any input from council? Seeing none, I just have one question. Yes, Chris.
Sorry, Mrs. Stabinsky mentioned 26A. I don't see that on this application, Ivan. Which one would be, is it part 4 there?
That's
yeah,
correct.
okay.
It's where the mouse is, yeah.
Yeah,
So
okay.
what's happened here is when the Kemps approached me about severance, I said, well, I don't really like having somebody owned behind somebody else's house or cottage. But if everybody could agree to it, then that's fine. And they appeared to be agreeable. Now, I guess the owners of 26A may have expressed some interest in purchasing now. So now they might choose to purchase it. And the whole point about the deeded access, you notice here that that property, 26A, is fully surrounded by other lots. So that was the deeded access part. They want to make sure that they don't lose access, which we are supportive of. I mean, we don't want to prevent any access. So yeah, that's the property there.
Great, thank you.
Okay, well, that answers my question. I was wondering what that part 4 was. So, if there's no other questions, then I will ask for a vote. All in favor? Motion is carried. Carmen, I guess I'll pass it ahead to you.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll go on to item 2.
Yep. Oops, sorry. And thanks, Mr. Stabinsky. If you want to, you're welcome to stay to the rest of the meeting, but if you want to sign off, we're done with your portion now.
Okay, thank you. Enjoy your day.
So the second consent is D10-115, D10-116, and D10-117. And the recommendation is that the Committee of Adjustment for the Township of Whitewater Region approve 3 consent applications, file D10-115, D10-116, and D10-117 for the properties described as part of lot 25 and 24, Ross, Concession 7, Queens Line, subject to the conditions outlined in the report. You get a mover and a second.
Mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Olmsted, second by Councillor Mackay. And I guess we'll pass it over to Ivan.
This will go to Nicole, our planning student. Thanks.
Thank you. So the present applications are submitted by JP2G on behalf of Albert and Therese Dunbar. And what they're seeking is 2 lot additions and 1 surplus lot for the for farm residential purposes. So the first file is a lot addition and it's on the right-hand side. Should be pointed out there. And essentially, they're just seeking to put a lot addition onto the existing parcel there highlighted in blue. They will both have the same frontage and depth, and they both have the same acreage. For file D10-116, dash 116. It's also a lot addition, but it's on the left-hand side there as the cursor is pointing out. And it's going to have a frontage of 20 meters, and it's going to be added on to the retained parcel behind it there for application 115. And then the final one is file D10-117, and it's where the cursor is once again. The retained parcel is going to have a frontage of 20 meters, which is going to be from the previous file. And then the severed parcel itself will have a frontage of 261 meters and an approximate size of around 5 hectares, a little bit bigger. All parcels will be sized, will be able to sustain on-site water and sewage services. Pardon me. Here, so they all contain gently rolling terrain. For the severed parcel in D10-115, it's comprised of vacant land with some bush cover. And the lands to be added to are also vacant. For D10-116, it's entirely of bush cover. And the lands to be added to, as you can see, are agricultural lands with a natural water course running through the center. And then the severed parcel for D10-117 contains a farm, recreation facility / venue, a dwelling, several accessory structures, and a woodlot in the far east corner. Before I move ahead, it should be noted that the 2 agricultural parcels, which are making up the retained and lands to be added to, they're actually merged. It's not showing it here on the GIS, but the lawyer has confirmed that they have merged as of the time of this application. Moving on to noteworthy points. The severed and retained parcels all take place on prime agricultural lands. So the PPS states that within these areas, lot adjustments, which includes additions, are permitted for legal and technical reasons. And they also permit lot creations for the purposes of establishing a surplus farm residence, though the condition on that is that new residential dwellings have to be restricted on the retained parcel. So as such, there is a condition of consent that the owner will have to submit a zoning amendment, which they've submitted an application for, and it must restrict all future residential uses on the retained parcel. What else here? The natural watercourse in bush cover at the retained parcel and running through the retained parcel there. They're considered extreme wildland hazards by the county OP, though because the severed parcels are taking place away from this area, no mitigation measures will be required to be implemented. And then that same area is also considered significant valley land. The applicant has pre-consulted with staff from the county as well as from the township. And because there's no new development or structure proposed, there won't be any further action required on that. In terms of, there's another farm. In terms of minimum distance separation, the applicant has also looked into that to see if they're required to do an MDSI calculation, which they are not for the proposed new lot creation because it is a surplus to a farm dwelling. And then let's see. The last big one is that a zoning amendment is going to be required for the severed For the retained parcel, as I previously mentioned, for restricting residential uses, but a zoning amendment is also going to be required for the same parcel to reduce the minimum lot frontage from, it's not noted here, but it's to reduce it down to 20 meters, just so they have access to that retained parcel in the back. An amendment will also have to be done for the severed parcel in file D-10-117 to permit a bed and breakfast and a wedding event and venue as expanded meetings for the home industry under the Ross zoning bylaw. And lastly, another zoning amendment will be needed for the severed parcel in file D-10-115 to modify the category to just from A-exception 8 to agriculture A, so it complies with the minimum lot frontage. Other than that, staff are generally supportive of this. All severed and retained parcels are appropriate in size and shape, and they are suited to the rural character of the area. Is there anything else that you would like to add, Ivan?
No, I think just for council's purposes, these are the Dunbar farm venue area where they host weddings and other events. This will kind of close out the development potential of these lands. The lands that are agricultural will be retained and protected forever and a day, as they'll prohibit any residential uses. So just kind of consolidating things, cleaning things up, and the ag lands will be transferred to another farmer in the area, so they'll be continue to be cultivated in the future. We do have a few members of JP2G. Forbes Simon is the applicant on behalf of Mr. Dunbar, and we do have a Dunbar that's present here too. I'm thinking that's probably Bert as well. So I'll pass it back over to you, Chair, and we'll proceed from there. Thanks so much.
Okay, maybe we could ask either JP2G or Mr. Dunbar if they would like to speak on this first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's Forbes Simon from JP2G. Thank you very much for the opportunity to be with you this morning. I think your planner has captured the intent of the application very well. Essentially, this is the result of Mr. Dunbar's succession planning, moving into the next phase of his life, tidying up a few things on his property. He does have a bona fide farmer under agreement to purchase the lands, which I think is an important component under the county official plan and the PPS. And the continued existence and operation of the wedding venue, I think, is important for Mr. Dunbar, but also it is the type of economic activity in an agricultural area, which I think is compatible and what you want to see in the community. Other than that, I think we filed all the applications to undertake the necessary zoning amendments, and I appreciate your favorable consideration of this file. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. Does Mr. Dunbar wish to speak, or has everything been said? Can you find out, Carmen?
He's not unmuting, so I'm thinking maybe he's probably good. Mr. Dunbar, do you have anything to add? I don't think so. We can go ahead.
Okay, then I will go to council. Does any of the council have any questions to ask to Mr. JP2G? Seeing none, I'm just trying to get in my mind just exactly, are we doing some lot additions? Are these segregated areas going to be for buildings? I've kind of lost track of just exactly what's happening. So if somebody could just clarify, starting with D10-12-16.
Yeah, so,
Is that-
yeah, I could explain that to Chair McLaughlin. So the first application at the bottom is a lot addition. So there's an existing half-acre property there. They're gonna turn that into an acre property. That's a lot addition. And it'll likely be developed in the future. That'll be held by Bert, and he could transfer it to whomever he likes or build on it or whatever. There'll be a 1 acre property there. Now, because they're severing the barn venue off, those lands at the back, the ag lands, won't have frontage anymore or access. So that's why they're doing a lot addition at the north side for the 20 meters, and that'll give the access to the ag land. So it'll protect the access for future use. And then ultimately the venue will be severed off with 5 hectares or 12 acres and will be a separate property. So you're going to have the venue, 1 acre vacant property, and then the property which is held, I think, by Mr. Dunbar at 1946, and then the ag lands at the back. Thanks.
Okay, no, and that makes it very clear to me. The only question I have is the addition to that lot. Would there have to be an MDS done if there was some building done, like if a house is going to be built on that property?
So the guideline from OMAFRA indicates that in the case of an existing lot that is less than 2 hectares in size, then the MDS one does not apply. So there would be a house that could be built there. We would try to position it as far away from any of the adjacent barns, like livestock facilities, but a house can be built on that new the expanded 1 acre property.
Okay, because that was my one concern, is because I think as long as the existing farmer doesn't have any restrictions and the house can be built, then I don't have a problem.
Good, thanks.
And I think you've clarified that to me, and I understand. I can see that the piece over on the far side is just an access to get into the agricultural ground properly. Isn't that correct?
That is correct, yeah.
Yeah. So there's really actually, when you clean it all up, there's only going to be one new lot created, and the rest are just existing additions or severed off the barn for a venue.
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, no, that answers all my questions, and I'm quite, because I'm quite familiar, and the only thing you could do with that piece of ground where you talk about is make a building lot from it, because it's not really, it may be agricultural, but there's surrounded by rock and it's not really farmable. So I'm good. Anybody else, any questions? If not, I'm going to ask for a vote. All in favor? Councillor Mackay? Okay, motion's carried. Thank you. And then we'll move on.
Okay, the next application is application D10-118. The recommendation is that the Committee of Adjustment for the Township of Whitewater Region approve consent application D10-118 for the property described as part of Lot 11, Westmeath, Concession 2, Sturgeon Mountain Road, subject to the conditions outlined in this report.
Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Mackay, second by Councillor Olmsted. And once again, I guess I'll turn it over to Ivan.
This one will also go to Nicole as well. Thanks.
Thank you. So the current application is submitted by Judith Lee, and she is seeking one lot addition to an existing agriculture property. Thank you. So the retained parcel will have a frontage of 590 meters approximately, with an area of almost 30 acres. The severed parcel will not have any road frontage, and it has a size of approximately 7 acres. The lands to be added to, which are in blue there, have a frontage of 157 meters and are approximately 58 acres in size. All parcels are appropriately sized to be serviced by individual on-site water and sewage services. And then the retained parcel, as well as the lands to be added to, will have access to a municipal roadway. So the severed parcel in question, it contains flat terrain and it has agricultural fields to the north and south, and then bush cover to the east and west. There's also yeah, you can kind of see it there. There is an intermittent water course that runs north-south through the center of the parcel. The lands to be added to, as I previously mentioned, they are agricultural lands with some bush cover in the corner there. And then the retained parcels contain agricultural land as well. As for notable aspects, these parcels are once again located in prime agricultural area. This permits for lot adjustments and lot additions, which the current application falls under. Additionally, the concerned parcels are located within a non-decision area in the county OP. As such, the existing rule designation will apply, which encourages the continued presence and use of agricultural uses and normal farm practices. Located northeast of the property, there is an active aggregate pit. It's the Mclennan Pit. The OP establishes an influence area of 300 to 500 meters from active aggregate resources, which the severed and retained parcels, they will be outside of this area of influence. The lands to be added to are 20 meters from the boundary of the pit. However, since there is no future development planned on these lands, there won't be a study required for the impact of development. Let's see, the intermittent water courses that go through the severed and retained parcels, as well as the lands to be added to, they're considered significant valley land. However, since site alterations to these parcels will be limited and essentially will have minimal to no impact, the city will also not be required for this. Let's see, what else is there here? Other than that, once again, staff are generally supportive of this. The lots are appropriate in size and shape for their intended use, and it is well suited to the rural character. Ivan, do you want to cover the conditions?
I would, yeah, that's fine. I could go ahead and do that. So very basic conditions here is that they submit surveying to the township and county. Thirdly, that their lawyer confirm or ensures that those two properties merge as a lot addition, and council or the committee will see this over and over again. Severed has to merge with the lands to be added to. Properties are, I'll just note, properties are held by M&L Enterprises, so Mel and Lynn Langton. At the corner of Sturgeon Mountain and Zion Line, he has that grain drying facility, as council will know. So these lands, I think there's a tile drain that outlets or goes in over the severed parcel. So as part of the purpose of the application is primarily to obtain these lands for that purpose. So that's it. That's all for me. Thanks.
Okay, do we have the applicant in the audience, Carmen?
I'm not seeing anybody. If anybody wishes to unmute themselves and speak, feel free to do so. We'll maybe give it a few seconds and then we can proceed. Yeah, I'm not seeing anybody. I think you can proceed, Chair McLaughlin.
Okay, is there any questions from council? I'm not seeing any. Then I'll ask for a vote. All in favor? Motion's carried. And then Carmen, we'll move on to the next item.
Okay, the next application is file number D10-119. The recommendation is that the Committee of Adjustment for the Township of Whitewater Region approve consent application file D10-119 for the property described as part of lot 20, West Meath, Concession B, EML, Indian Road, subject to the conditions outlined in this report.
Okay, mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Mackay, second by Councillor Olmsted. And do we want to turn that back then to Ivan?
Yeah, thanks so much. So if we could just scroll down to the map, that'd be great, Clerk Miller. So essentially what we're looking to do is to sever a property here that'll have 10 acres, and as well as create an easement, right-of-way access easement to the retained land. So essentially these properties front on Indian Road, and the red parcel is a severed parcel, 10 acres, and then the retained parcel is the green portion. One of the key things here is that the property, these properties are located at a bend in the road at Indian Road, which is presents some difficulties, and we wish to limit the number of access to Indian Road. And further, on the east side of the entrance is a local wetland, so there's a bit of a wet area. So the proposal here is that they would have a shared entrance to Indian Road that would traverse the severed parcel to access the retained parcel. So while this application is to create a new lot, it is also to establish a right-of-way access easement over the severed parcel. One of the notable things to note here is that development around Muskrat Lake at capacity has some water quality issues. When you look at development applications within 300 or 400 meters of Muskrat Lake, you are to generally undergo what's called a water quality impact assessment. However, in the case where you could fit a septic system 300 meters away from the shoreline, then you are exempt from this requirement. So that severed parcel, if we measure from the shoreline of Muskrat Lake, there's an area that is greater than 300 meters away. So there will be a developable area that won't require these certain types of soils that I spoke about last night at council, the horizon soil. So we're not going to require that as a condition of approval. So with that being said, conditions being recommended from staff is the surveying. Number two, that the owner retain a surveyor to determine the width of Indian Road along the frontage. So just confirm that the width is 20 meters. So road widening, number four. So the frontage of these properties will not comply with the minimum 45 meters. In fact, they're probably closer to, what is it here? Closer to 41, 42 meters. So an amendment to reduce the frontage of these properties from 45 to 40 meters. So those are the list of conditions that are being recommended by staff. If there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. And we do have Russell, who is the applicant on the file. He's attending the meeting as well. Thanks.
Hey, does he wish to speak before I ask the council?
Russ, if you wish to speak, you could just go ahead and unmute yourself and start talking. Otherwise, you could stay muted and we'll progress with council questions. I'm not seeing him unmute himself, Chair, if you want to proceed.
Any questions from council? Councillor Olmsted? No, you're good? That was thumbs up?
That was just a thumbs up, yep.
Yep, okay. Then I'll ask for a vote. All in favor? Motion's carried. Okay, Carmen?
Okay, so now we're on to file number D10-120, and the recommendation is that the Committee of Adjustment for the Township of Whitewater Region approve a consent application, file D10-120, for the property described as Part Lot 13, Ross Concession 11, Presqu'île Trail, subject to the conditions outlined in this report.
Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Mackay, second by Councillor Olmsted. And I guess we'll pass it back to Ivan.
Yeah, thanks so much. Nicole will make presentation of the application, but I will note to the members of the committee that we do have, these files are submitted by JP2G and they are in the audience, so they may wish to speak after Nicole makes. So you can go ahead, Nicole.
Thank you. So this application is seeking to create one lot addition to the Whitewater Village Cottage Club and to create an easement for right-of-way access to the beach along the south there. So the severed parcel itself would have a frontage of 13.2 meters and would be approximately 0.74 acres in size. The easement, which would be within the red there, it would be approximately 8 meters for frontage. And because of its irregular shape, it's not noted on here how much the area would be. So the severed parcel itself is located along a slope, southward facing slope towards the river. It contains vacant land with bush cover. And then the retained parcel has cottage dwellings, an accessory structure along the southern shore. As well, it has prerequisite trail running through the center of the retained parcel. As for notable features, there are 2 known slip play sites on the subject lands. However, since there is no physical construction proposed with these applications, staff is not recommending a geotechnical study or an environmental study as a condition of approval. However, future construction projects may be subject to an evaluation to determine mitigation measures and whatnot. Let's see what else is there here. The parcels will comply with the minimum lot size requirements, and the non-conforming policy within the Ross zoning bylaw will come into effect as the lots do not meet the minimum frontage requirement. However, in the Ross zoning bylaw, there's an exception to this for non-conforming lots before severances. Other than that, they are generally accepted by staff, and staff is supportive of this, and the properties are suited to the rural and waterfront character of the area, and the application will help to maintain a balance between natural shorelines and existing built form as requested by the county OP. Ivan, would you like to just touch on, oh, sorry. There is also, through engagement, the chief building official expressed concern. Oh, he wants to make sure that the septic systems, they're confirmed to be located on the severed and enlarged parcels. This is a condition of consent. Ivan, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I'll make just to maybe a few things. So the proposal here is to sever a chunk of land that'll be added to Whitewater Village Cottage Club. So it's shown here, severed lands, 0.3 hectare. The map at the bottom is better, but and then also in yellow along the Ottawa River, there's an easement that'll give the Whitewater Village Cottage Club owners access to that beach. So that's all beach in that area. So we're fully supportive of this. However, CBO Schultz, if we look on the area here where it says retained land 6.6 hectares, just to the right of that, on that red parcel, severed lands, there's what's called peat moss system. And one of the things that CBO Schultz has outlined is he wanted to confirm that the mantle area, attenuation area, like the whole area of the septic, not just the tanks, but the whole area where septic is treated, the effluents of the septic are treated, are all on this property, all on the lands that are going to be held by Whitewater Village Cottage Club. So that is a condition of consent. So other than that, we're asking for surveying. again, complete septic system area, that the properties merge, again, that the severed lands merge with the enlarged parcel. And those are the only conditions. So, so that's it for us. And if there's any questions, we'll be glad to answer them. And again, there are people in the audience that are here on behalf of the,
So I guess I would ask Carmen if you could see if JB2G wishes to speak on this issue.
Brianna is in.
Hi there, thanks. So yeah, I'm Brianna Kenny with JP2G. Thanks for that, Ivan and Nicole. I think that pretty well summarizes it up. And yeah, just in terms of the septic systems, we will confirm where the mantle and loading area and everything like that's located on that severed parcel to ensure that everything's going to be contained on the Whitewater Village property and won't have any impact on the Wilderness Tours property as the retained lands. And if you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else in the audience, Carmen, that wishes to speak? Or Ivan?
Don't see anyone.
no.
Okay, then does council have any questions? Councillor Olmsted.
Just a comment. I've been down there several times over the last couple of years. Mr. Kowalski took me on a tour to show me what he had planned here, and it makes perfect sense to what they're doing to add these lands onto the current Whitewater Village. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? If not, I would ask for a vote. All in favor? And the motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, Carmen, we'll move on.
This application is D10-121 and D10-122. Recommendation is that the Committee of Adjustment for the Township of Whitewater Region approve 2 consent applications, files D10-121 and D10-122, for the properties described as part of lots 12 and 13, Ross, Concession 12, Voyager Bay Trail, subject to the conditions outlined in the report.
Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Olmsted, second by Councillor Mackay. And I'll turn it over to Ivan.
Yeah, thanks so much, Chair McLaughlin. So council will be very familiar with this property. It's the Voyager Bay lands, if you will. They're all accessed by Voyager Bay Trail, private road. These 2 applications, as well as the next 2 applications, are all accessed by this Voyager Bay Trail. So these applications are the 9th and 10th new lot created from the original holding. You'll notice just above where it says retained parcel, there's a new number of lots that were created there in the past. And the recommendations out of this report are none different really than what was required for those other lots to be created. Key features include wildland hazard. So again, that tree forest, the forest area that may have potential to catch fire and have impacts to property. The proponent has filed a study or an assessment for wildland hazards, and those requirements will be part of the development agreement as recommended. The proponent also conducted an environmental impact study to support his application. The findings of that EIS will also form part of the development agreement for these properties. Thirdly, the applicant conducted a hydrogeological assessment and nitrate impact study. And in addition to that, he also did septic designs for these 2 properties. Again, that's all completed and will form part of a development agreement between the township and the owner. Fourthly, I guess, the applicant or proponent has filed an archaeological assessment. So any development within 300 meters of a navigable waterway requires an archaeological assessment. So he's done a stage 1, which has recommended that you do a stage 2, very, very common in archaeological assessments. Stage 2 is underway, and it'll be a condition that they submit that stage 2 as a condition of approval. Any recommendations from that stage 2 will form part of that development agreement again that will be signed with the township and the proponent. These lots are accessed by a private road, so development agreement to speak to the private road as well, and also accessed by Pettigrew Road, which is a seasonal road that is maintained under an agreement with Mr. Kowalski throughout the year. The OP establishes a maximum of 3 lots from original holding. This is 9th and 10th, so the requirements are greater. That's why we're doing a hydro G. That's why we're doing an environmental study. That's why we're doing that wild land hazard. And so on and so forth. So I'll just move over to the conditions, and I'll sort of summarize them for the members of the committee. But I'll speak to one component that is. That has changed a little bit. But essentially that they submit surveying, digital and hard copies to the township and county. Number 3, that the development private road agreement be entered into between the owner and the township. Again, recommendations from the environmental impact, recommendation or mitigation measures from that risk assessment, the planning justification report, recommendations from the hydro G and the septic design drawings, very, very common for the other lots in this area, and the requirements relating to the private road, and that all this be registered against the title. That's the stage 2 archaeological will be submitted, as previously discussed, that they obtain a zoning amendment to remove the holding symbol. So all these lots, these 2 lots and the retained parcel are all in a holding zone. So they'll have to remove what's called that H. And he's been doing that for the other lots as well. And then the severance of 121 occur before 122, because if you sever 122, then you're going to have a gap there as part of the retained land. So we want them to be orderly to go around that cul-de-sac. The one key thing here is Voyager Bay Trail. In our past agreements, it was always to be brought up to a certain standard. And that standard back in 2019 is when he did his last 3 severances, was a standard as approved by the manager of public works. So the manager of public works would visit the road and say, yeah, this meets our standard, and the fire department would do the same. But that's a visual observation, and it puts a lot of onus on that one employee to sign off on a private road. So we've since, and council has adopted what's called a private road standard. And that private road standard establishes the minimum width of the driving area, minimum width of the right-of-way, which it will comply with that. It's already 20 meters, if I understand correctly. And the minimum thickness of granular. So moving forward, and I did communicate this with Mr. Kowalski when he severed his last 3 lots, is that road needs to be built to that standard. It needs to be accepted to a standard, because we keep issuing permits for new cottages on these properties or new dwellings, and the road hasn't fully, it's in a decent shape, but it hasn't fully been brought up to the standard that we wanted at, and that poses a risk for emergency services. So as a condition, as part of this new development agreement, we're going to want the road to be brought to a standard that is acceptable through the private road standard prior to issuing any future permits. So these lots, we will not issue permits until that road is accepted to comply with that private road standard. So that's one of the key things here. The rest of the conditions are pretty similar to what we've seen in the past, but this is something that is an additional requirement, if you will. So that's all I have for this, and I'll be glad to answer any questions. I will note the next 2 reports are very, very similar, and I'll be able to skim right through them. Thanks so much.
Okay, JP2G wish to speak on it? Did anybody wish to speak, Carmen?
All right, I think Catherine's online if she wants to speak.
We got the whole group from JP2G today. Forbes, Brianna, and Catherine. That's great.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe staff did very well in going over the application. I'm available for any questions if you have them. Thank you.
Any questions from council then? Councillor Olmsted.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, obviously a very fulsome, wholesome report here. Lots going on in it. With respect to the studies, there is a number of studies, and I would agree in lots of these need to be done. I think I counted 5 or 6 with respect to some of these severances, and I assume the same thing's kind of come up in the next 2 packages as well. Environmental impact, no issues there. Mitigation measures for wildland hazards, etc. Planning justification, hydrogeological. I get all those. It's the archaeological assessments that I have a bit of an issue with. Obviously, done a stage 1, now having to go through a stage 2, and who knows beyond that. So I get the idea behind some of these archaeological assessments and studies that need to be done. Are they completely necessary? I really don't think so. You know, we're sometimes looking for a needle in a haystack, and it's an onerous cost put on to the owners of these properties. That do we really need to put this cost on to the applicant when, you know, they're doing all the things that they need to do to ensure that, you know, you can put a well, you can put a septic, you know, the land's suitable to build on, and soil samples, that kind of stuff. The archaeological one, I have a little bit of a problem with that one. Thank you.
Maybe I could, maybe I'll just have some quick comments, if you don't mind, Councillor Olmsted, and through you, the chair. One of the key things here is that the stage 1's been done. And I mean, if we were looking at this, looking back, so these applications, these 4 applications, the next 2 as well, they were consulted as part as conversation with the County of Renfrew. I'm not saying that staff at our level probably won't recommend it, but now that a stage 1 has been done, I think that we kind of have, because it recommends a stage 2, I think in this case, we kind of have, I'm strongly recommending that we require the stage 2. But maybe when we look at future applications, we could examine the need or requirement for an archaeological assessment. But that's all I have to say is that is basically that. Thanks.
Okay, does that answer some of your questions, Councillor Olmsted? Go ahead.
Well, partly, yes. So I guess in totality, Chair, you know, if these studies were done on the other parcels as well, so below the retained parcel there, I think those were all lots as well, Ivan, if I'm not mistaken, all the green with the red lines around them.
Yeah, they are lots that were created probably in the last 5 years.
Right. So I would only say that, you know, if we've had archaeological studies done on those, and, you know, we're turning up nothing, you know, why do we keep having to do an archaeological study on land that would be, you know, whatever, a couple 100 meters away from those lots, when I just think we're putting the owner through studies upon studies that I completely get the other ones for sure. If I'm building on a lot, I want to know that I'm going to be able to drill a well and put a septic and that kind of stuff into. But if it's all roughly the same land area, I just don't want to keep putting guys through the same studies.
Yeah, and maybe I'll speak to that. So the first number of lots, from what I understand, they did not do an archaeological assessment. That requirement became more onerous and more required probably in 2020, when the province adopted some changes to the official plan. So the first 6 or 7 lots, there was no archaeological assessment. And yeah, typically what happens is when you start getting to the 10th, 11th, 12th lot, like maybe we should be examining the process. So in this case, Severance has worked relatively well. But yeah, like you could usually just do one study for the whole lot and then you get your results and it's done, right? And then you can develop however you want to develop. So yeah, I don't disagree. We don't need 5 different studies for 5 lots. One study to look at everything would probably be the best approach. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Chair. I'm good with that.
Okay, Councillor McKay.
Hello, are you still there? I lost you.
Yeah, we're here. We don't see you, but we hear you.
You see me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so Now, this road requirement, do we have to, we held back on these lots being severed until we get the road fixed, or what do we want to do on that?
So what happens is back in 2019, when I started, we were reviewing the last 3 severances. In the road agreement that I had revised from previous severances, dating back to 2017, 18, I had noted in the agreement that we do not issue permits until the road's brought to our standard, because if we keep issuing permits, people are going to reside there and we can't access them, in a quick amount of time. So we would allow that these severances proceed, and in the development agreement that would be registered against these 2 properties, that the road be brought to a standard prior to issuance any permits. So that's kind of how it would be worded, Councilor McKay.
Okay. Thank you.
And maybe I'll add to that is, when I was drafting the agreements back in 2020 or 2019, Mr. Kowalski called me, said, Ivan, what's this provision about building permits? Well, I said, well, we need to get this road built. Like, it needs to be to our standard. And he agreed with that. And I agreed with him that we would allow these 3 to proceed, but the next ones you do, we want the road built. And we've come to sort of a verbal agreement to that. And now we're imposing that requirement. Thanks.
Okay, I have a question on that one, Ivan. Is that it is going to be township wide on all private roads?
I would say yes, we should be imposing the policies adopted by council on if you're developing, if you have a development application on a private road, it should be brought up to a standard that to comply with our private road standard. Yes.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that, as long as it's going to be part of the proceedings that go ahead from here on in. So if anybody else asks, it's the same thing.
Yeah. Now, in some cases, like here, we're getting 4 new lots, so that's pretty substantial. I would say that if there's a sliver of land that finishes the development, maybe we don't require the full standard. I mean, I think it's a case-by-case basis, but if you're starting from scratch and you're putting a private road in, it'll have to meet our standard. There's no question.
I think, Ivan, do we have a policy in place for this? Is that what you, that's, I guess, what I'm looking for is a policy.
We have a private road standard, a standard policy. It speaks to the minimum requirement of a private road. It doesn't speak to when it applies for new private roads. Yes.
Yeah, and I think maybe from here on in, we need to start to enforce that. If we're going to do it for one, we should do it for all.
Yeah,
is my
I would say
comment.
there. Yeah, and there might be, and again, staff. There might be some situations where staff don't recommend that, and it'll be explained in that report why we don't recommend.
And that's fine. I think we do that in other things as well.
That's right.
Yeah, so I have no more questions, and I mean, we can debate this private road development at a later time. So I'm just going to go ahead and ask for a vote. All in favor? Carmen, can you see, because I can't see Councillor McCaw.
Yeah, it's carried.
Carried? Okay. Then we'll move on.
Okay. Thank you, Catherine, for that. And I'll move on to application D10, 123 and 124. That Committee of Adjustment for the Township of Whitewater Region approve, sorry about that, approve 2 consent applications, D10, 123 and D10, 124 for the property described as part of lots 12 and 13, concession 12, Pettigrew Road, subject to the conditions outlined in this report.
Mover and a seconder. Carmen, can you see if Councillor McKay?
We have, yeah, Olmsted and McKay.
Okay. And I don't know, we're passing it to Nicole or Ivan.
It'll come to me, and I'll. So essentially, what we're looking at is 2 new lots, both just over 1 acre in size, 1.36 and 1.1. If you scroll in just a bit, zoom in a bit, Carmen, just so that we could see where the other lots were. So these are the 2 new lots in dark red, and if you just scroll down slightly. Either way, that's fine. I was just gonna, so you can see the other lots down there where we just, where the other applications were. So this is just up the road slightly from where the other lots were. I'm gonna skip right to the conditions. This is a extremely similar report. The conditions are essentially identical, so that the applicant submits surveying to the township, that they enter into a development private road agreement pertaining to the EIS, to the mitigation measures of the wildland hazard, the planning justification report, the hydro G, and the requirements for the private road, that the agreement be registered on title, that stage 2 of the archaeological be submitted, and that they apply for zoning to remove the holding symbol. Last but not least, that zoning should also include, there are there's a little bit of a creek running through one of these properties, so we would also modify the EP zone, environmental protection zone, to reduce the size of it in accordance with the environmental study. And that's ultimately it. So staff recommend the approval of these two, and we look for some comments from the committee. Thanks so much.
Okay, Carmen, do we have anybody to speak on this?
And again,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I think staff did a very good job at explaining the application, and I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Okay, any questions from council then?
seeing none,
Seeing none, Carmen?
none.
Then I'll
Unless,
call,
yeah,
okay.
sorry about that, Chair. Chris, you're good, eh, Councillor Olmsted?
Yeah, I was just going to say pretty much the same comments I had previously, which I'm okay with. Thank you.
Okay, then if not, then I'll call for a vote. Carmen, can you see? I take it the motion is carried.
Yeah, carried.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then we'll move on.
Apologize. Okay, sorry. So last-ish, but not least, is a confirmation of the minutes, and it's that the Committee of Adjustment approved the minutes of June 24th, 2021.
Okay, mover and a seconder.
Councillor Mackay, Councillor Olmsted.
Okay, is there any questions on the minutes? Seeing none? Carmen?
No,
No, and I'll ask for a vote. All in favor?
carried.
Carried?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and I guess that would be
Yeah.
the end of the meeting.
Yep, we'll call for adjournment.
And can you note the time, Carmen?
It is 11:09.
Okay, very good.
Just a question, is this the last one until September now, or no, we have more yet, Carmen?
I may have to call one for a variance for trailers, but we will not be having any Committee of Adjustment consent applications until September.
Okay. Chair, if I may, I just want to commend Ivan, and I assume Nicole's been helping him a lot. We seem to have gotten a ton of stuff done in the last month. Probably unprecedented in my 6 or 7 years, and I'm sure yours as well, Darrell. But we seem like we blew through a ton of stuff here in the last couple of months.
Thanks so much. And yeah, 24 applications, in fact, have been approved by the committee in the last since we've taken ownership is as of May 1st. So we've done a lot, and there's a lot more coming. So we have probably about 5 in the queue, and then I have about 4 on my desk right now. So
We're going to need a raise.
We'll be
We're gonna need a
scheduling in
raise.
September, and it only takes an hour every time. It's not too bad, I have to say.